want to say something about why we're here and why this is so important to your education and understanding the world that we live in. Pan-Africanism, I want to explain, and I hope I get the pamphlet here that I wrote that will help you further understand how important this is to you and as a part of your education. To most African Americans I encounter, which means a handful of people, there might be 50 million of us, we don't know, who would trace a social definition to being African American. Don't get into nonsense about race. We are a population, we are a culture, we are a people, we are an ethnicity, we are identified by land, language, religion. That's people group. It's not skin color. There are a lot of people who look like us in the world. There are a billion people on the planet who look like African Americans. But they're not us. We are a people. You got that? Just as a Yoruba who comes here from Nigeria is a, he belongs to a people. An Igbo who comes here from Nigeria belongs to a people. Y'all follow me? Yeah. Okay. They are Africans because they live on the continent of Africa, that's geography. They're not the same people. A Hausa, which is in the news now, who live in the northern part of, I'm going to butcher the name, Boca Raton, the Muslims, the radical Muslims element, lives in the northern part of Nigeria. There are 40 million of them. They are Muslims. They have been Muslims for over 1,000 years, the Fulani and the Hausa. This is missing from our education, I know. This is sad. Because, you get this in 10th grade world history, which one of the things the conference tries to bridge those gaps. So these are three great people from Nigeria, distinct histories, distinct people, language is different. Fulani and Hausa speak Hausa. It's a language close to Arabic. The Igbos speak their language in the eastern part of Nigeria. The Yorubas created all this great art treasures around the world. They live in the Midwest mostly. Some of them are Muslims or Christians. They're mixed. The Igbo are animist or Christian. And an animist, it's not about, has nothing to do with animals. Animist, the timeless religions, pre-Muslim, pre-Jews, pre-Christian, long before Jesus showed up, these people were private. Before Muhammad came. So those are messianic religions. So he had a message of bringing the dispensation of faith to the world. That's what Moses did. He got the tablets and brought them to the people, right? Jesus, who was a Jew, who said that the Messiah hadn't come yet. And so out of that you got a new religion. Christ was a Jew. Jesus Christ was not a Christian. Paul created that, Christianity. It's like people say they are Marxists. You heard of Marx, a whole empire, the Russian Empire in 1917 set itself up as a Marxist state, through 15 different countries. They made it one state, and it lasted till 1990. The Soviet Union, right? That was a state under the ideology of Marxism, which comes out of the writings of Karl Marx, who wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1852. You understand? Wrote Das Kapital, the movement against capitalism. Marx was a man who wrote some very influential socio-political writings. It's brought a new faith into the world. And Marx, lived well after the Civil War in America. In fact, he was writing for the New York World Telegraph. He's the one who encouraged Lincoln, along with Frederick Douglass, to use black troops, and he would end the Civil War. He was seeing it from afar in London. He wrote for American newspaper. So-called Marx. And by that time, Marxism was a movement. There were people who called themselves Marxists. You know what he said about them? He said, I sure am glad I'm not a Marxist. What they've done in my name, not a Marxist. Jesus Christ would be ashamed of what's done in his name. Paul invented Christianity primarily. He wrote half of the New Testament. Paul, who used to be Saul, who was a Jew. And he had something called Epiphany. All of a sudden it came to him that he should be a Christian. That's how Christianity started. These are the kind of things that black people need to deal with. Not the propaganda, not the mythology, not the ideology that America teaches everybody. It's hurting white people now. They're in trouble because they don't understand these other factors in the world like Islam. We have to really, you young people especially, I'm talking to everybody. We are all one community. I don't believe in that separate stuff. I think we're an intergenerational community like all communities. Older people have a moral responsibility to teach young people, whether they want to hear it or not. That's a moral responsibility. It's a standard of conduct which we ought to stop this Bill Cosby foolishness about condemning the young people like that. That's the wrong way to do that. So at least you could condemn. I went around the block first. I know where the pitfalls are. And I have a moral responsibility to tell you, this thing, don't go there. Been there, done that. You can go, if you're strong-headed, but don't say, nobody told me. Don't say that. Because somebody did tell you. Don't go there. Been there. It's dangerous. Now, so you have a movement in the world. It's been around for 200 years in some form called Pan-Africanism. Pan, P-A-N, is the world meaning all of Africa. I am a Pan-Africanist, which means that I embrace Africans. No, all Africans are not angels. I know that. Sese Mobutu was not an angel, who ruled the Congo for all these years. I'm against that, his actions. But we have to have concepts of how to embrace who we are in the world as a geographic population, not a race. Geographic, substitute the word race with geography, because that's what you're talking about. Everybody has a geographic heritage. Europeans have a geographic heritage. Asians have a geographic heritage. They different people, but they come from the same geography, right? Chinese, Japanese, Hmongs, Thais, Cambodians are all Asians because that's the land base. That's their identity. They're not racist. That's a modern crazy idea that come out of Europe and is imposed on the world. I mean, let me just depart from what I really want to say and say this about Europe. The Europeans it's an incredible story in the story of the human family. There's nothing like this has ever happened. A handful of people from about 15 countries created the idea of race. That's where it comes from. There was no race in the sense that we think of discrete entities based on people's color, and that determines who they are. The way you look is not who you are. Now, black people gotta stand up, but you gotta know something other than the white ideology that you live under, and challenging this. The way I look is not who I am. You think you know who I am. I mean, if you look at me now, you could say, ooh, I thought a guy Well, no, he's my brother. Hey, what up? You know, and I said, Jenny said, wow. I don't know what you're talking about. Because I'm from the French-speaking community. I didn't just come from Haiti. I came from Paris. Born there. You get it? That buses, their people belong to speech communities. Speech communities. Geographic heritage. And sometimes religion determines who you are. You follow me? And sometimes I don't know if people, because it's kind of alien and it seems wrong to talk like this because it falls outside of the rubric of the white supremacy paradigm. And I'm fiercely against the doctrine of white supremacy. I wish there was some way we could fight a war with that and get rid of this menace to humankind. But we don't even acknowledge that we're living under this doctrine. Even though we've had segregation, enslaved in a caste system based on white over black, which has everything to do with where we are now. We have not, black people have always challenged. I don't think I'm unique. I wouldn't be talking about this. Other people who preceded me and fought against this ideology, which suppresses black people, indigenous people, and does terrible things to the spirit of white people. They don't know that yet, the way they set it up. It's a terrible thing. It's coming down on whites. This false notion that they are superior to other human beings because they are white. That's nonsense. Nobody can prove that they're white. No white person with any sense would dare try to prove that. It's not a biological reality. It's a social construction. That it means it's politics. Race determines who gets what, when, and how much. That's political. That was segregation. That was enslavement. Perhaps the most brilliant mind of the 19th century was Frederick Douglass in the era of politics, social thought, and so forth. Far superior to any president. You know, he mastered 4 languages. I struggled and I've only mastered 2, broken English and profanity. You know, he never spent a day in school, but he was inferior because of the doctrine of white supremacy. J. Ernest Wilkins Jr., who graduated from the University of Chicago at age 19 with a PhD in physics, was inferior according to that doctrine. And you follow me? You can't acknowledge that because he belonged to inferior people. And race has nothing to do with you in a human or personal sense, because it's not a human or personal reality. It is a what? Political reality. You got it? It's what matters politically. And it's about power and how it's shared or not shared. That's what it's about. The whole thing about race and color covers that up, and you be thinking you belong to a race and so forth. And the black people are, they're this way because of their race and their genes, and there's an achievement gap. That's nonsense. There's no achievement gap. We belong to an oppressed nationality. Now, most people don't agree with me. Certainly white people are not going to buy that. And most black people are not going to buy that because they got 2 Cadillacs. I'm free. It's what King was talking about. Respect for human personality. That's what the fight is about. I'm a human being. You define me as a species of property, which is what George Washington called black people. You property. You're not people. In our Constitution, we wrote that you are 3/5 of other persons. You're not a whole person. That was legal. That was in law. If black people were educated like they should be on the real facts of their lives collectively, there would be something way beyond the Civil War here, because the human personality is outstanding once it becomes conscious. Some of that happened in the 60s. The Black Panther Party, saying enough in Babylon. Let's have a revolution. Now, I believe in revolutionary suicide. Let's have it on the street. I think it was Emertis people who challenged Ronald Reagan when he was a governor. Let's have a demonstration. You and me, pick your weapon. And we'll settle it. We'll symbolize. If I shoot you, maybe we can get rid of the doctrine of white supremacy. But it's about black people who have been taught by the leaders of white people that we're not fully fleshed human beings. Example. Whether originally or a distinct race or made distinct by time and circumstances, the blacks are inferior to the whites, both in the endowments of the mind and body. Thomas Jefferson. Yes, he did. The same man who wrote, "We hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." That's the source of the American problem. I mean, Thomas Jefferson symbolizes that. That is the conflict, the contradiction between professed ideals. All men are created equal. With women, that we hadn't arrived yet. Seeing our growth as a family. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Martin Luther King called those, he said those words are the most important socio-political document ever written. That's, besides his Christian faith, that's what drove him to these words. When Thomas Jefferson said all men are endowed by their Creator, he didn't say, all white men. He said all men, which includes black men. He didn't say all Gentiles, which includes Jews. He didn't say all Protestants. He said all men, which includes Catholics. There's a universality to that statement that he tried to put on the ground, both from a Christian perspective and from the so-called American ideology, the Christian creed about freedom. He put it on the ground right before our face. And the people who were with him, they didn't do it by himself, but all the, the Rosa Parks and C.T. Vivians and all these people put that on the ground before our face. Most Americans did not understand that. Some did now. People in think tanks and so forth. Nobody was talking about. People in Congress, certain black people had their heads screwed on right, knew exactly what he was talking about. But basically, Americans don't know much about themselves. That's why they're behind us, because we're creating democracy. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Washington, what? The father of the country. Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson built the University of Virginia. Jefferson took his personal library and gave it to the government to start the Library of Congress. Great man, great intellect. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, the fourth president. Father, all of these men contradicted what they claimed to stand for. They were all slaveholders. Big time. It wasn't a small 25 slaves. We're talking about hundreds. In his lifetime, Jefferson claimed to own 600 black men, women, and children. And yet he said all men are created equal. That is what's wrong with Americans. They can't deal with it. The professed ideas, our professed ideas, right, is contradicted by the reality of practical problem. You get it? All men are created equal. He's denying men, women, and children. That's a violent contradiction. That's what gives America its schizophrenic personality. That you do things. That wasn't a democracy, that was a slavocracy. We are creating democracy. And black people are the key. So, well, that sounds racist. Get out of town with that stuff. I'm not talking about race. I don't believe in that nonsense. We're talking about ideas. We're talking about human growth and development. We are, in fact, talking about freedom. You don't want to oppress anybody. That ain't going to work. not God, we're not chosen people, have placed us in this unique position to advance human progress. Black people, and you I say all the black people on the planet, Americans, the slave, the non-person, the person who was not seen as a human being by the founding fathers, most of them. There were only 39 of them. You know, who with the constitutional thing. See somebody in the room, our forefathers, get out of there. You don't know what you're talking about. Most Americans don't know that much about America. But you do. You're in a position because you know what the contradictions are. And you've got to raise the contradictions. You cannot create without contradictions. Contradiction is the principal law of nature. If you don't have that, there's no creativity. And we represent the contradiction. There's freedom and there's slavery. Those are contradictions in the same place. When they clash, something anew will arise. They clashed in 1861, and it brought about the Civil War and a transformation of the country. No, we didn't get free. I mean, but on paper we were free according to the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. We have been free since 1868. We have been citizens, and Malcolm X used to remind us, why are we having a civil rights? The Constitution says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States and the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor deny them due process. He said it's already there. Nobody has the civil rights. No other ethnic group but the Negro. There's no Polish civil rights movement. There's no. We're not immigrants. You got to get that. And I talk to young children too, and it's very challenging and very scary to me because they're the most challenging. I get nervous when I talk to second graders because they're free. They ask you anything. You know what I mean? They don't have the crud. Their minds are not crudified yet. They will ask you anything. You know, I get nervous. Because I know about grown black people. I know their giants, you know. So I'm not scared of grown black people. Well, I'm a little nervous around children because I don't know where they're coming from. One child asked me, do you ever laugh? Well, you answer that. not at the moment. But here is the thing. Yeah, I wish the young man should have seen me. I'm smiling now, but I was trying to teach him some Swahili, and that was very hard. You know, so he was saying, smile. That's honest, you know what I mean? You know, the people laugh, and you ain't laughing, you know. My teacher's always smiling at me. You know, I don't see, you got teeth, you know. But I've never seen them. Never seen your teeth, you know. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying, this is a very important conference. Now, I had some prepared remarks, and I decided not to do that. We have remarks sometimes to get you in trouble. You know, you gotta, I know what I want to say, I know the basic ideas, what's important to me is that black people re-energize themselves first intellectually. We've got to become intellectually armed. We've got some great examples in our background. There would not have been any civil rights movement if there weren't certain black people who were intellectually armed. And it begins way back in 1905 when the Niagara movement was organized. No more than 35 black, well-educated men, all of them had the highest degrees you could get from the elite universities. The leader you know, but there were others, you know, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, I hope, met in 1905 in Niagara Falls, Canada, because they could not get hotel accommodations in Niagara Falls, New York. That's why it's called the Niagara Movement. And they once put the card on the table and Du Bois said, we declare our rights as every free-born American, and we will take not one jot less than that, and we will never cease to assail the heirs of America with that challenge. That's kind of a clarion call. That's kind of a declaration to white America. And then he made one of the things, very statement, and very prophetic. He said, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. It involves relations between Africa, Europe, Asia, and the island of the sea. That worked out in the 20th century. We saw that. In 1900, the whole colored world lay prostrate with Europe on its back, building new wealth in the world. In Africa, Asia, the islands of the sea. It was white man's burden, manifest destiny. So the response to that was the Third World Movement and the Civil Rights Movement in this country. The response to white supremacy. That's what he's talking about. The problem of the 20th century, my dear reader, is the problem of the color line. It involves relations between Africa, Europe, Asia, and the islands of the sea. And that's the battle. That was the battle. Now, Africa and Asia's been decolonized. They took the signs down from us, white over there, no blacks here, whites only and all of that. The same thing happened in Africa, decolonization movement. When Nelson Mandela came here, the first time he addressed Congress, you know what he addressed them about? The Civil Rights Movement. He knew more about the Civil Rights Movement than the average black educated person, because it inspired them. Most black people don't know they've inspired the world. That's not on CBS and NBC and so forth. You don't know what your relationship is to Arab Spring. What the hell do they know about We Shall Overcome? I should say they know a lot, because that's what they put the sign up, We Shall Overcome. And in Tunisia, they were singing it. But we don't pay any attention to that, because we've been so, our personalities have been so distorted. You think it's about us, but it ain't nothing. Because this is what the country, how we've been informed by the doctrine of white supremacy. Yeah, it inspired the Arab Spring. In Tiananmen Square 25 years ago, when the oppressive government of China came down on the students, they built a sign longer than this room, a big, banner. Guess what it said? We shall overcome. Am I the only one got this on my wall? It's inspired. I met Bernadette Devlin, one of the leaders of the Irish movement. Bernadette Devlin was a radical Catholic fighting the Protestants who represent England and Ireland. These are Scotsmen that England imposed on the Irish, a buffer people. And she taught me two lessons. She pointed out, first, she said people would call us violent, the Catholics, but we were non-violent until 1968 because it became unbearable. And the source of our non-violence was the King movement in Montgomery. We patterned ourselves as after the black people's movement. That's why it was non-violent. It just became, the fighting Irish came out of us. We started fighting back. Then I said, Irish, that's good. I know that there was some kind of identity. It's a mixed relation between Irish and black people. Irish were the worst treated white people in this country, not Jews, because they had been enslaved to the British for 700 years. That's what she told me when I said, well, you're not like black people in America. I know Freddie Douglass visited Ireland and said the same thing she said. That Irishmen worse off than materially, worse off than black slaves in America. They've been hovels, no shoes, and so forth. We don't even know anything about that, because we don't understand the doctrine of white supremacy. We don't understand race, which was practiced on by Europeans first. Irish was seen as a race. The Frenchmen called themselves a race. The Englishmen call themselves a race. Whatever differences they can make between one another, that was a race. And they even did some physical thing with the Irishmen. You see, they're physically different. You know, they got too many freckles, too much red hair, too many pug noses. Yeah, that's where race starts, with something physical, and it translates into something like your values, your beliefs, your emotions, your intelligence, which has nothing to do with that biology. You get what I'm saying? So we are once again being challenged as a community, as a people, as a black nation, to move. The black people of the 1950s and 60s, the Martin Luther Kings and the Medgar Evers and the Malcolm X's and the Rosa Parks and the Fannie Lou Hamer's and the Victoria Grays and all these wonderful students and snakes, they met their moral assignment. And that was to make a frontal attack on segregation, the ugliest face of racism. They did get rid of segregation. So stop saying that. See, we don't know our history. Immediate history, you have black people, I do a radio show on it, right? It's crazy. When they come in, well, black people ain't never done. You don't know what you're talking about. What do you live? I live on 836 Morgan Street. I mean, what planet do you live on? You don't know black people changed this country? You don't expect for them to do. I got a call just the other day. A lady said, well, when they going to give us a right? They ain't going to give you a right. You're going to take it. Rights are not given. Who gave America the authority to do what they do? Who gave Jefferson the authority? Who gave Washington? Nobody. I took authority. That's what a young woman told me at the University of Wisconsin. They gave me an award, an honorary PhD degree. And I said, y'all can't do this. Well, we in college, what was it, Oak Ridge College. It's in California. It's a small college. They said, how y'all gonna do this? You're giving out PhDs to certain people. I said, well, where y'all? And I asked the lady, I never forget, she had a big bush, you know, and I said, where y'all get the authority? Where we get it from? We don't get it from nobody. We took it. We salute who we want to salute. Whether the University of Wisconsin or Michigan or whatever, we salute that. We say you're a PhD. I used to hang it on my wall. I took it down now. Give her in trouble. I mean, but she was right. That's what you do. You take your freedom. Nobody gives you freedom. Martin Luther King kept saying that the oppressor never willingly gives up his power to oppress. It is left upon the oppressed to change the world. Gandhi understood that. King understood that. Mandela understood that. You got to do that. And stop pussyfooting around. You know, when they gonna let us do nothing? When are you gonna get off your haunches and stand up and be a human being? That's the question posed on the black man and woman today to free their children. Is to stand up to white supremacy. I know what you're up to. I understand the doctrine of white supremacy. It's a modern thing that came out of an accident of history. You know, when the man, this sailor made a monumental error. You know who the sailor was? Chris got lost. He didn't know where he was. It's an accident of history. And Chris bumped into some people. He didn't discover anything. He encountered these Tianos, Arawaks, Caribs, the people that inhabit the islands. These are, you call them Indians because Chris didn't know where he was, see? They call themselves Arawak, Caribs. That's where the term Caribbean comes from. Tiano, the people who inhabited Haiti, were the Indians. And they were replaced by the black population from West Africa, with Igbos and Yorubas and Hausas and Fulanis in a short generation, because Chris practiced genocide long before the thing happened in Nazi Germany. That's why you have West Indians, because the native population was wiped out by disease, murder, genocide, and they were replaced by African workers at the behest of a Catholic Pope named Bishop Lacasis, a Catholic bishop. Bishop Lacasis, who went to the Pope and pleaded to import Africans because the Native Americans were so innocent. They didn't have standing armies. Who ever heard of that about standing army? You know, so and they're beautiful people. You know, they don't know hunger, they don't know something, but they can't farm. They don't, and that their immune system cannot tolerate our diseases that we brought in. That's how it's another accident. A Catholic bishop pleaded with the Pope to import Africans because they're more like us. They're agrarian people. They grow stuff. You know, they're farmers. So import them. And that's when this stuff started. An accident of history. Christopher Columbus came over here 4 times. He never knew where he'd been. He didn't know where he had been after he got back. Where he'd been. He did it with somebody else's money, you know, with Isabella and Ferdinand. They financed this trip. Accident of history. And this thing, Europeans were still fighting among themselves, killing, murder. The greatest killing field until recently was in Europe. That's what you knew. Catholics and the Protestants. But not only that, the Presbyterian was killing the Episcopalians. You know, over this thing of religion, the doctrine, fighting. The king created his own religion. Anglicans. Yeah, okay, sir. You wanted to ask a question?
I'm just itching to ask you this question. I don't mean to stop you.
Stop.
Can I go ahead? Okay. And let me just say, Brother Akaji, I admire you. I like that what you did with that book in terms of teasing out race. I think it's a genius kind of thing that more people need to see. Given that, the question I'm itching is this is, you know, I'm a political scientist, and this is the debate that's going on in Washington about the use of this term, Islamic terrorism, Islamic, you know, they're trying to get the president not talking about tactical or operational or strategic strategy, but the significance of the term, and he must use it, otherwise we're defeated. And I'm just curious, I want you to speak to that and let me know what you see in it, and you know, I'm just curious about that.
Well, just a general response. I applaud some of the things that Obama is not doing, you know, taking a stand. No matter what he does, he's going to be wrong. Whether he does it standing on his head or his feet, he's wrong. You know? But he's right. Now, he's on the right track. And he's trying to inject a little morality into the play. And that's important because our struggle is not simply political, it's moral. It's not white and black. It's right and wrong.
But why are they insisting?
Yeah, because they want him to support their ideology. Yeah, you know what we get in trouble about is it time to go? I just got started.
Well, I can tell your car service to leave.
No, don't tell them where are they.
They're downstairs.
Oh, I hate this. I got another meeting to go to talk. So I hope I haven't disrupted your thinking about what I've said. You know what I'm saying? I want you to know that this conference is significant. And you must help keep it alive. This is the only thing we got. And you've got to understand the doctrine of Pan-Africanism. If you want to be a modern black man or woman, you've got to deal with this idea that's been around for 200 years. They dealt with people like Paul Kufi, who brought black people, a black sailor, back to Sierra Leone. That's a Pan-Africanist act. You got to know who Martin R. Delaney is, one of the few black officers in the Civil War, who organized a Niger-Congo exploring party and toured a part of Africa, which is now Nigeria, and Abu to resettle black people, and they undercut him. And that's how you get, you know, Liberia is the brainchild of white supremacists, you know, like President Monroe. That's why the capital is called Monrovia, named after him. And Liberia is a corrupt word for liberty. It was fed up by slave owners because they wanted to get rid of the literate black population. You get what I mean? Like Frederick Douglass and those. We embrace Africans. I don't care how crazy they are. I'm in some crazy Nigeria, so I don't even care about that. He don't represent. When you think about the construct and how to see the world ideologically, it's not the individuals, it's the idea that controls your thinking. So I met more than my share of Africans who ain't right, you know. But I would embrace Africans no matter how many Nigerians set me up to put me in jail. You know, I don't care. That's what Pan-Africanism teaches. Love them. Love must prevail. There are crooked people everywhere. We're gonna embrace them. This is what this conference is about, to give you an African education. I hope my pamphlet
Sure, it's just,